I decided to go on a last-minute camping trip in the middle of fall. It wasn't really planned, more like a quick decision before the cold winter arrived and made it impossible for a while. I wanted one final trip to the northern woods of Minnesota before everything froze over. I'd been up there many times before, since I lived just a couple of hours south. It had always been my favorite spot whenever I wanted to escape for a weekend, hike, or just enjoy some peace. The place I chose was a small, hidden lake deep in the woods. That's one thing I've always loved about Minnesota. It's filled with thousands of lakes spread all across the northern part of the state. If you know where to look, you can easily find a quiet lake that no one else visits. That's what I liked most, being completely alone in nature. A few years back, I found this particular spot, and ever since then, it became my go-to camping place. The first 3 days of this trip were calm and quiet. Nothing strange happened. I spent the days exploring the forest, swimming and sitting by the fire, enjoying the stillness around me. There was something comforting about being surrounded by nature and hearing nothing but the water and wind. I didn't feel uneasy or watchful at all. Everything felt safe. But on the 4th day, things changed. When I woke up early that morning and stepped out of my tent, I noticed something that immediately made me freeze. There were footprints all over my campsite. Not just nearby, they were right up to the front of my tent. I knew they hadn't been there before. They definitely weren't mine either. These prints were from large, heavy boots, and I didn't even own a pair like that. Whoever made them had been there during the night. A chill ran through me when I realized that someone had been walking around my campsite while I was asleep. I spent the rest of that morning walking through the woods and along the lake, searching for any sign that someone else was nearby. But I didn't find anything. It wasn't just the fact that someone else had been out there that bothered me. It was the timing. Why would anyone show up in the middle of the night, walk all around my camp, even up to my tent, and then leave without a trace? No other footprints led to a campsite or trail. It made no sense. I thought about leaving, but I convinced myself to stay. This was my last camping trip of the year, and I didn't want to cut it short over something I couldn't explain. Maybe whoever it was had just come by, seen my camp and left. Maybe they'd been looking for an empty spot and didn't want to share the lake. I tried to make it sound less creepy in my head, but it still felt wrong. That day went by slower than usual. I didn't wander too far. I mostly stayed near my tent and the campfire. When the sun started to set, I built up the fire and sat nearby, trying to relax. I had mostly calmed myself down. The footprints were weird, sure, but maybe there was a simple answer I just didn't know. Thinking about it too much would only make me anxious. The night air was cold but peaceful. The crackling fire, the soft wind, and the gentle sounds of the lake made it feel normal again. I sat back in my chair, zipped up in my winter jacket, and let my body sink into the warmth. My eyes started to feel heavy. I didn't really want to get up and go inside the tent yet, so I just let myself drift between being awake and half asleep. That's when I heard it. Someone said my name. My eyes snapped open, and for a few seconds I couldn't move. The sound had been so clear, like someone standing just a short distance away had called out to me. I looked around quickly, scanning the dark tree line, but everything looked exactly the same as before. The fire still burned low, and the forest was silent. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't tell if I had dreamed it or if I'd really heard a voice. It felt too real to be my imagination, but it was so strange that my mind tried to convince me otherwise. After a minute, I called out a quiet "hello," just to be sure. My voice echoed faintly through the woods. Nothing. No answer. I told myself it must have been some sort of dream. One of those half-asleep moments when your brain mixes reality with dreams. That explanation was the only thing that made sense. Still, the shock had my adrenaline running, and I was completely awake now. I sat there listening to the forest, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling, but it stuck with me. After sitting quietly for maybe half an hour, my body started to relax again. My eyelids felt heavy. I was about to lean back when I heard it again. My name. This time it was clear, louder than before, coming from somewhere in the darkness beyond the trees. I froze. The voice was definitely real. It wasn't someone I recognized, but the way the person said my name sounded almost calm, almost friendly, like they were calling out to me for help or trying to get me to come closer. I stood up slowly, eyes locked on the dark line of trees. Then it came again. The same voice, same tone. He didn't sound far away. My mind raced. How could anyone out here possibly know my name? I hadn't seen another person for days. My head spun with questions I couldn't answer. I took a few cautious steps toward the edge of the firelight and called out, "Hello?" My voice trembled a bit. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then the voice spoke again, calling my name one more time, exactly the same way. Something about it felt deeply wrong. I could feel it in my chest. The way he was saying my name wasn't right. It was like he was trying to draw me out there, luring me into the darkness. Every instinct told me not to move any closer. I backed up slowly and decided I wasn't going to wait around to find out what was going on. I started packing up my things, trying to be quick but quiet. My hands were shaking, and every small sound made me pause. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, barely lighting the campsite. I kept hearing faint crunching noises in the distance, footsteps moving through leaves. The voice kept calling my name now and then, closer each time. Whoever was out there knew exactly what they were doing. That was the scariest part. I finally got my backpack ready and grabbed my flashlight. I thought about turning it on, but stopped myself. If I used it, he'd see exactly where I was, so I kept it off, hoping the darkness would hide me instead. I moved quietly, heading away from where the voice had come from. He called my name again, his tone now quieter but closer. My stomach dropped. I didn't look back right away. I just kept walking faster. When I finally turned around for one last look, I saw something faint through the darkness. Behind the dying firelight, there was a shadow, a figure standing still. I couldn't make out any clear details, just the outline of a person, tall and still, watching. Something about his posture and the way he stood there felt completely unnatural. I turned away and hurried deeper into the woods, the voice calling my name one last time before it all went silent. The hike back to my car was the longest I've ever done. Every branch crack or rustle made me flinch. My heart wouldn't stop racing until I finally reached my car and locked the doors. The relief I felt driving away from those woods is hard to describe. For a while I thought about going to the police, but what would I even say? That someone called my name in the dark? That I saw a shadow near my camp? It would sound insane. No one would take it seriously. It's been almost 3 years since that night, and I still think about it often. I have no real explanation for what happened. A part of me still wonders who that person was, how they knew my name, and what would have happened if I'd followed that voice deeper into the woods. Sometimes I hate myself for not finding out, but I know deep down that walking toward it might have been the worst mistake I could ever make.